Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cry But Don't Quit Show. I'm your host, India Miles, and today we have another guest with us who's going to introduce herself and share her challenge with us.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Cosha Joseph. So my challenge is, throughout my entire life, I have been the go-to person for everything. So, of course, that can get heavy because everybody's coming to you for everything. Stress, especially with family, it becomes an expectation and obligation, right? And so throughout life, as I began to be busier and do more things, it got even more heavy. So I'm like, okay, hey, I need to do something different because I want to change the narrative, right? And it got to the point to where it can be the smallest thing. And so I looked at it as if like it's something that I created because when individuals would reach out and they expected, I did it. So I always stepped up, oh, I'll do this for you, I'll do that for you. And then it started to get tiring. And so it started to weigh on my mental health physically because I was overextending myself to everyone. And so now when I've decided to say, I want to pull back a little bit because I want to focus more on me, but also not be as available because I know the damage that it caused. And so as I'm pulling back, I'm getting a lot of negative feedback from those individuals because they're not used to me not being there. And so I had to learn to say no, say it without guilt, right? And being able to move on. So the challenge that I'm facing now is, or the question that I would ask you, how do I not feel bad about wanting to pull away and kind of reclaim myself and my power without upsetting people and making them feel a certain type of way with me doing so?
Good question. Good question. I was really looking forward to this conversation because obviously this is the first time I'm meeting a lot of my guests and I've gotten to get to know you over the few weeks. I'm like, but you're likable, Dr. Kosha. And you're available and you're accessible.
Yeah.
So even through your Instagram, it's like, can I be her friend? Like, she's so likable. So I can understand why they want you. But I was really looking forward to this conversation so that we could talk about the difference between, you have an executive assistant. I don't want to assume she's here today, but I'm assuming.
Yes.
Did you bring her with her? Yeah. So we've got the executive assistant, but where you are at in your career, you are being introduced to the need of having a chief of staff. A person, if you think about a public figure or a politician, or in your case, you're always on stages, you're always speaking. The chief of staff is essentially your clone. She can make the decisions. It's not to, put anybody out of work, but it's to strengthen your team. And most high profile people, that's the rite of passage. They get pulled aside and the conversation is had like, hey, what happens when you can't show up? And this thing has to keep going. You can't work from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep and create and travel and do all these things. So for those of us who are passing the level of striving to be successful and having to arrive at success, Carla and I joked about this, like, where are our wives? Where are our, husbands have wives at home that cook and clean and keep house and do these things. We go home and do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not a coincidence that it's your family that's like, okay, it's great, you boss lady out there, but you still got to take me here. You still got to do this.
Yeah.
You still got to pay for that. So definitely, and it when you shared the challenge with me, it sounded like what was important to you was that your family knew that they came first.
Correct.
And the chief of staff can let at least the business stuff be taken care of apart from that. To directly answer your question, it's to, really practice some vulnerability. The trick about self-worth is that, as you noticed, it becomes a muscle where you're already doing a lot.
Yes.
So you don't know when you pick up the socks on your way to the bathroom. You don't know when you're doing all these added things because you are already high wired to be a high performer.
Yeah.
So the training at this level gets to be, I'm worthy of rest. I'm worthy of support. Where's my team where when I need to do something, they're booking the flight. They're like, you need more than a few people to do that. But if you can sit them down and look them in the eye and let them see human side of Dr. Kosha and try to involve them and include them in the process. Hopefully, if they love you and they're,
I think it scares them.
I think so too.
Because it's
you're
like, I see what you got going on.
Yeah.
I don't
How's that?
want
Yeah. Speak to that.
So I think for the most part, it's like I always tell my husband sometime, like, if you just kind of step in my shoes for one day, you would really understand all of the moving parts, everything that I have. And for you, when you talk about being wives, being mothers and things like that, being business owners and having our own things going on, everyone is still expecting us to show up. It doesn't matter how busy we are. It doesn't matter how tired we are. And so when that happens, it's like, okay, hey, you can tell someone I cannot do it today, and then they're upset. And so I always look at myself sometimes as like the family manager. It's like, okay, you got to put everything in place. You got to plan all the trips. You got to pay for everything. Like, it's a lot of things that I have created, and now I'm trying to undo what I did. But I also understand that everybody is not going to get my work ethic. Everybody is not going to get how I move, my passion. And so for that, you just ask for understanding and not for anything to totally change. But it's more so about letting my family know that I am there for them, but also letting them know that sometimes I have to put me first, because if not, I'm not okay, everyone around me falls.
Well, I like your accountability. I'm big about that, ladies. It's so important that we hear you say that again. You created this. You have a high work ethic. So the beautiful thing about practicing higher self-worth is that we get to decide when we don't want to be her anymore. We get to be somebody new. And those who are meant to travel that road with us will get it. And those who are hurt by it or scared by it, essentially because of your high capacity, you are holding someone else's growth up.
Yeah.
Because you've always stepped in, you've always done, and anyone that is a driven person, or not always driven, anyone who has come from lack, come from not having enough, you don't feel like you do enough. You feel like every minute of your day has to be filled with productivity.
Yes.
And then you create an element where it's expected, and it creates an entitlement that not only is Dr. Kosha going to do it, but the world is going to do it for me. It shows up in your children, it shows up in your siblings, it shows up in other people. Like, why do I have to grow when I can just pick Dr. Kosha's mind when she comes home?
Absolutely.
Why do I have to think? So on one hand, I want to celebrate you and applaud you, because that's not a flaw. It's just an opportunity to manage now the responsibility that comes along with being successful. And I thought about this when you asked the question. You earned it. So if you want to just put your feet up and like, look, I used to be the go-to girl, but you know what? I've earned the opportunity to just sit on the beach somewhere, turn off my phone, and enjoy the moment. Why do I have to always be on and worry, about what's going on?
But there's times sometimes where people will make you feel bad for doing things for yourself.
All the time.
Right. And so if you take a day like, oh, well, I needed you to do this. So it's like, because you're catering to everybody, you will stop everything that you're doing to be there for them.
And that's the beauty of having a chief of staff. Because this person essentially is your buffer. They make it so that you are not accessible. When you are taking that day to yourself, you shouldn't even hear about it. And they are putting out the fires, and they are answering the calls and the emails and checking a few folks. Like, look, she just worked 40 hours this week. Let her have a day so that she can continue to do what she does. So it's a little bit different than an executive assistant or an intern or something like that, because this person knows where you're trying to be this time next year. They helped you build the plan, and then they're protecting you. And preserving your rest and your clarity and your well-being, especially being a mental health professional. And you have to hear about it at work all the time, too.
All the time. And I think the most important thing is realizing that it's what you need. I couldn't do everything, right? And so who I have now is more so like an executive business partner for me. So everything goes, and it takes so much off of me as a person, right? Especially with work-related things, because I struggle with stopping. Like, I would tell myself sometimes, like, okay, I'm going to put my do not disturb on at 6 o'clock and I'm not going to answer calls. But if my phone is not giving me some type of activity, if it's not ringing, if it's not dinging, if I'm thinking I'm missing something. So I'm immediately picking the phone up, taking it off do not disturb, and I'm going to look. So it's getting into the practice to allowing myself to rest, right? And get that reset and being comfortable knowing that I do have a chief of staff that helps me with everything else.
It's uncomfortable when you've had to have your hand in every part of the process. It's uncomfortable to have to relinquish that to someone where you're completely hands off. And I advise you to do it in phases because you are entrusting them with a lot. Take a year to get to know this person first before you just automatically give them access codes to your Gmail and everything. You know, so that's the beauty of being a successful woman, is that on one end, it's glamorous, it's amazing, you're living your dream. On the other end, you've got to manage that thing and steward it so that you can sustain both, because we also have the responsibility to nurture the people in our lives, to protect them, and to be emotionally available for everyone. And unfortunately, we just, don't always come across too many people that are available for that. So before we go, could you share with our audience what you have coming up, or how do we get a hold of you?
So, of course, guys, I'm Dr. Cosha Joseph. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I am the owner of 4 outpatient behavioral health clinics throughout Texas and Chicago area. I am a coach for the professional woman. You can reach me. My website is www.coshajoseph.com. My Instagram is dr.kosha, and of course, across all other social media platforms. My podcast, In Good Company, The Executive Seat In Good Company. You can also find me on YouTube there.